Hi, I'm Brianna.
And I'm Akira.
And you're watching
Dante's Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So it's no secret that Gennady Golovkin's last performance, at least by the perception of many, was, some would say, his most difficult fight. Some would say was a fight where he looked his most vulnerable in the fight. Despite getting a TKO win where the corner threw in the towel, it still looked like that was possibly Golovkin's most difficult fight to date. And Danny Garcia completely agrees with that assessment. Now, I know some fans that don't understand boxing, they'll say, how can that be his most difficult fight if he stopped the guy, right? Some fans, they'll just look at the fact that even though he didn't stop Kell Brook, it was still a technical stoppage. So just because he stopped him, a lot of fans, they failed to look at everything that took place before the stoppage. All you have to do is ask yourself, if you were facing Gennady Golovkin next, what film would you study the most? Would you study the David Lemieux fight, or would you study the Kell Brook fight? And I can guarantee you, if you're trying to give yourself the best chances of winning, you're most likely going to study the Kell Brook fight, right? So with that being said, that is exactly what Danny Jacobs is doing. I mean, I'm sure he's probably studying the Willie Monroe fight and probably other fights as well. But we know for a fact that Danny Jacobs was partially encouraged, or largely encouraged, by the Kell Brook performance. With that all being said, Danny Jacobs had some very interesting things to say in correlation with Kell Brook. Let me go ahead and quote what he had to say. It wasn't just the Brook fight. Even though the Brook fight was a clear indication that if you have speed and you have movement, that you can hit him, obviously I put myself in that position. Hey, if this guy, this little guy, can hit and somewhat hurt him, could you imagine what I'll do if I land those same punches? So yeah, it's a bit of an edge, but at the same time, this is boxing. He could be a totally different fighter in the next fight out and fight a totally different style. So we just have to be equipped and ready for anything, any and everything, end quote. Now, the first thing I want to say is, I do like the fact that even though Danny Jacobs, he noticed some flaws from the Kell Brook fight, at the same time he's being realistic and he's saying, you know what, this guy, he may have improved. He could possibly have, he may have a different complete style when he fights me. It just shows that he's not naive. It shows Danny Jacobs' boxing IQ. Clearly, Gennady Golovkin, he's going to try to improve his defense for this fight. But at the same time, I truly believe after 400 amateur fights and after 30 plus professional fights, this is a flaw that Gennady Golovkin is not going to improve on. Some fighters just don't have the greatest defense. Because once again, you go back to the Willie Monroe fight, and remember, that fight was a couple fights ago. And that Willie Monroe fight was very similar to how the Kell Brook fight played out. In the Willie Monroe fight, just like Kell Brook, Willie Monroe, he was hurt early. And it looked like it was going to be an early night. All of a sudden, after Willie Monroe gets hurt bad, he gets knocked down, all of a sudden he rallies back and he's making the fight competitive. This is what happened in the Kell Brook fight. Remember, Kell Brook was hurt in the very first round. So that's more proof that Gennady Golovkin, he wasn't going in there trying to play with Kell Brook. He wasn't going in there trying to entertain the fans by getting hit, because Golovkin came out of the gate trying to knock Kell Brook out. He hurt Kell Brook with a hook, and he tried to finish him off, but he couldn't do it. Okay? So with that being said, the fact that Gennady Golovkin, he looked the same way a couple fights back that he looked in the recent Kell Brook fight is proof that he has not improved when it comes to his defense. This is just the type of style that Gennady Golovkin has. He has an aggressive style, but just because you're aggressive does not mean you're supposed to automatically have a suspect defense. Because I remember Max Kellerman tried to say something like that. He tried to defend Golovkin when he was fighting against Willie Monroe. He was saying, well, yeah, he's getting hit more than often, but when you commit to trying to knock someone out, of course, you're going to get hit more. That's not true. That's completely false. Because great aggressive fighters like Mike Tyson, he was a complete knockout artist, always coming forward, always going for the knockout. Mike Tyson had one of the greatest defenses in heavyweight history. Okay? So it sounds ridiculous when people try to say, oh, he purposely wanted to get hit because he just wanted to entertain the crowd. Matter of fact, even Golovkin's own trainer, he shot that notion down. He said, absolutely not. That sounds ridiculous. Abel Sanchez, he specifically said Golovkin was getting hit because of the skill and the speed that Kell Brook possessed. Speaking of speed, I pay attention to everything, of course. Golovkin said something that I thought was pretty telling leading up to the Kell Brook fight. Golovkin asked his trainer Abel Sanchez, of course, about Kell Brook. He said, do you think Kell Brook's speed will be different? Meaning, do you think it will be a different type of speed that we've never come across? This is basically the question that Golovkin was asking his trainer. So it tells you clearly Golovkin had concerns about this new type of speed that he might be dealing with. And what's crazy is exactly what Golovkin was worrying about is what slightly exposed him just a little bit. So it's very interesting. And now you hear Danny Jacobs saying clearly Kell Brook showed that a fighter with speed and foot movement can give Golovkin a lot of problems. Now, I truly believe personally that if you want to really get Gennady Golovkin's respect, no doubt about it, you can win a fight by using a lot of speed and foot movement like Kell Brook did. But at the same time, every now and then, you're going to have to back up Golovkin. I mean, Oscar De La Hoya, he said it a long time ago. He said Golovkin is strong, he's very strong, but there are ways to beat strong fighters. And Oscar De La Hoya, he said that Golovkin cannot fight going backwards. And that goes for the majority of aggressive come-forward fighters. The majority of aggressive come-forward fighters, they can't fight going backwards. That's why Evander Holyfield, he had Mike Tyson in a lot of trouble, particularly in the rematch, when he started to back up Mike Tyson. And that's when Mike Tyson started to get frustrated, and Mike Tyson felt that he was going to get knocked out a second time, and that's when he basically opted out by trying to bite off Holyfield's ear, because in my opinion, Mike Tyson, he said to himself, I'd rather get DQ'd than get KO'd. So while I believe it is possible Golovkin gets hit with a flush shot early. Because once again, we're not really used to seeing Golovkin get touched. Not really with nice flush shots by a guy who has power. You got to think about it. When you look at Golovkin's face was more bruised up in the Kell Brook fight than any other fight that I've seen Golovkin in. So once again, it goes back to that question you really have to ask yourself. If a welterweight was able to inflict that much damage within 4 rounds, that's something else you have to take into consideration. Golovkin's face was bruised up. He was in a real fight that only lasted about 4 to 5 rounds. Now imagine Golovkin in that type of fight in the later rounds, where someone is not taking no for an answer. In other words, when Golovkin gets in the ring with a guy and he is forced to deal with resistance, it's yet to be seen if Danny Jacobs is that guy. Because once again, it's really hard to just put money on Danny Jacobs because of the fact that he's been knocked out before. Of course, he was knocked down by Sergio Mora. So it's hard to really say, oh, Danny Jacobs, he wins this fight hands down. But this should be, at least this is a competitive fight on paper. I've said it before and I'll keep saying it. Even though Danny Jacobs has been knocked out before, this is a step in the right direction for Gennady Golovkin. I think this raises his, ranking status just a little bit higher if he were to go in there and just completely obliterate Danny Jacobs. If he did that, it would still be impressive, And of course, if Danny Jacobs were to shock Golovkin the way he shocked Peter Quillin, of course, that would be the biggest upset of the year. We already know that. So that's pretty much all I got for now. I'm on to the next one, guys.